You're listening to the Iggy Podcast with Nick Ignatov.
Hello everyone, welcome to the third episode of the Iggy Hockey Podcast. We got lots to talk about today. I'm going to dive deep into the Wildcats for a little bit early on. We're going to be talking about the Senators again, and we're going to have lots of Leafs talk. Lots of Leafs talk about the last night's game in general, as well as just some normal Leaf stuff today. So it's going to be a very cat and leafy podcast today. So we're going to start with the Wildcats, and there was some news a few days ago. It was the 4th of December, which was Monday. I am recording this on Thursday the 7th, by the way. Thursday the 7th in the morning. Just in case something happens and you're like, why didn't you talk about this? Well, because it wasn't happening yet. So, the Wildcats are excited to announce Danil, I think it's Daniel, something like that. It's Russian, okay? Miromanov has officially signed with the team. So this guy is a Russian player. He played in Arcade Bathurst Titan for 2 seasons. And he was acquired in a trade where the Cats sent Liam Murphy and 2 draft picks to Bathurst, while him, Oliver Desjardins, who was released about a month ago or so, and a 6th-round pick back. Now, the thing was when he was acquired, they were really excited, but there was 2 big things with the Wildcats. 2 instances so far this season where they had a really good Russian player, and they decided not to come. Kovanov, I believe, was their big pick in the CHL import draft. He's really highly touted, supposed to be a good player, and he decided to stay in Russia rather than play in Moncton. So that was kind of hard to hear. And now Miromanov was a big acquisition in this trade with the Titan, and he also decided not to come. He decided to go into the KHL. So he played there for about 15 games, I believe, and now has decided to come back to the Q and play for Moncton. So this is a huge deal. Now, there's a few things about this move, and that is, 1, he played forward before. That was where he was playing, and when he went to the K, he started playing defense, and according to the Cats, that's where he's going to play this year. He's going to be playing defense and will play that same position here in Moncton. He's 6'4", 198 pounds. That's a big boy. He's also a 20-year-old, so that brings some leadership and experience. The thing that is weird to me is the defense part, because in his 2 years in Arcade Bathurst, he had 42 points and 62 points. Both 42 points in 64 games, 62 points in 68 games. Both of those years, he had 22 goals, and his assist total went up 20. So he's a big goal scorer. You kind of need that right now. Why would you put that guy on the back end? And the thing that confuses me the most is that this team is already kind of full on the back end. If you look at lineup decisions from a while back, they've really kind of kept a lot of the same guys on, but they keep subbing people in and out, it seems. So a good example, you've always had Welsh and Aspiro as the 1 and 2 pretty much throughout the whole year. They're that first pair. And then you've also got guys like Jacob Arsenault and Lacoutre. And personally, I just want to point out, I would probably put Miromanov with Lacoutre if you're 100% sure that you're going to put him on defense, because he does shoot right, and you're not going to break up the Aspiro-Welsh pairing. That pairing's done too well, so there's no point in breaking them up. So you put him in that spot, and now you've got bigger depth on the defense. And not only do you put Jacob Arsenault down to the 4th pairing, and this is where you have trouble. You now have 3 defensemen for 1 spot. You got Kyle Auger, who came over from Ottawa, and I believe he went through CHL waivers, and we picked him up from Ottawa 67s. Jackson Bellamy, I'm pretty sure you're going to want to keep him playing. And then Jack Tucker. Those three guys are pretty important to the team, right? But here's your decision. So the other thing I'd like to point out is they've already had two defensemen that they've dumped. They had Wieringa, and I believe he was released not too long ago. And then you had Oliver Desjardins, who came over the Miramanov trade, and they released him too. So there's a lot of weird... I don't think Darren Rumble is happy with the defense he's got. And he wants to change it up, and he's constantly changing it up, clearly. So the fact that they're just a revolving door of defensemen is pretty interesting to me, and I will be very curious to see what happens when they think they've finished it. And maybe Miramanov is the last piece of this big puzzle. So, I mean, if it is what I think it is, what I think they're going to do, it all depends on what they want to do with Bellamy. That's, I think, the biggest factor in this. Bellamy is clearly the youngest. He's 16 years old. He's one of your biggest prospects. Obviously, he went to the U17 tournament with Jacob Pelletier. So you have to decide, right? You have to decide, do you want to have this kid playing, or do you want to let him sit? Because if you want to let him sit, Miramanov, that takes his spot. You have Arsenault, and you have Tucker, or you have Arsenault, and you've got Auger. You could just switch those two out. Bellamy kind of sits. But you may have to release another player. And the question is, which one? If I'm choosing, I haven't paid a lot of attention to the bottom pairings when it comes to defense. I mean, Nick Welsh and Asperot stand out every night. Guys like Arsenault, they've been kind of steady. They've been kind of like a Ron Hainsley. I haven't really noticed them that well, and I consider that a good thing. Kyle Auger might be the odd man out here. He's the smallest guy, I think, and maybe that's part of the reason why you let him go. He's a small guy. He's clearly better on the offensive, from what I can tell. So maybe he's the odd man out. I'm not too sure, but I'm excited to see what happens. I think there's a lot of lineup decisions that they've got to make, and this move definitely makes them a way stronger team. I mean, the guy had back-to-back 20-goal years, almost a point per game last year. By the way, he had 0 points in 15 games in the K. I'm not that surprised. He's playing with men, and he's 20. It's kind of hard to take that step. So I don't blame him for that. So the last thing to point out is he's 6'4". That's a big guy, and I mean he's got 20 goals, so he's clearly got scoring touch. I looked up some of his his highlights. And the only thing that concerns me is in almost all of his highlights I watched, he was scoring on breakaways. That's awesome. That means you've got plenty of speed. But he's playing defense. So if he's playing defense, he can't really score on breakaways. And so I'm curious to see how this guy's going to score his goals, if he's going to score goals. But that's just a thing I saw, I noticed. But I may be way off on that. I just thought it was a bit strange that I saw most of his goals were on breakaways, and the guy's now playing defense, where how often are you going to get a breakaway as a defenseman? So that's pretty much the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to Miramanov. I hope he's a big piece, and I hope he also kind of softens the blow of Sear being out. As soon as I heard that he was coming over, I thought, cool, another forward, but guy in the back end. Obviously, they're not fully happy with the defense they've got, but maybe this is the guy. The Cats actually play tonight. They play tonight against Blainville-Boisband, the Armada. I don't know how to say the city. I'm sorry. It's super French, and I'm not French. The point is they play the Armada, who is the best team in the league. So this is a big challenge, and that's on tonight. They also play on the weekend. Also an away game against Val-d'Or and Rouyn-Noranda, and then I believe they're back in Moncton on the next Friday. So, I'll try to listen in to the Armada game. I won't be able to listen to it tonight because I work, but the game on Saturday I won't be able to listen to either. Both days I work, so I'll try to look up highlights and get a decent idea of how Miramanov has played. And I'll get back to you guys on that one, all right? Now, let's move on to NHL talk. Now, what I was going to talk about today is mostly about the Ottawa Senators. Now, why? I talked about them last week. And a few things I noted, and I didn't even realize what was going on fully with the Sens. I knew that they weren't playing well, but I couldn't give you a reason why. I just thought they were in a funk. And and maybe I'm just not enough research is what might have happened, but I figured out why they aren't doing well, and it's simple. Their best player isn't playing well. Erik Karlsson has been held pointless pretty much. The last point he got was 2 assists against Colorado, November 11th, and he's been pointless ever since. Shocker, the Sens have won 1 game since. If that's not a Hart Trophy type of thing, and listen, the only thing, the thing with the Hart Trophy that bugs me is they go most valuable player to his team. Well, okay, that's great, but a team like a player like Crosby to Pittsburgh, is he important? Incredibly important. But they've also got Malkin. And so if Crosby goes out, they're still going to be really good. They still were good when Crosby was out for a long time, A team like Washington needs Ovechkin, though. And I think they would suck without Ovechkin or Holtby. If either of those two go down, Washington sinks. Clearly, if Erik Karlsson gets 0 points for the Senators, they win 1 game in their last 10, or whatever it is. They've barely won in almost a month. They have 2 more games. They play tonight against LA, and they play Saturday night against San Jose. If they lose both those games, they will have won 1 game in a full calendar month, from November 11th to December 11th, because their last win was in Colorado, and then they won 1 game against. Yeah, they won the game against Colorado, 4-3 on Saturday. That was the ones in Sweden, by the way. And they and Karlsson hasn't had a point since. They won the 1 game against the Islanders 6-5, and besides that, they have 1 win in a calendar month. And also, they've been shut out the past 2 games too. That's important as well to bring up, against Anaheim. So LA's a really, really good team. So is San Jose. Those are 2 games that, if you're gonna bounce back, man, you gotta bounce back fast. And Erik Karlsson needs to put up some points, because that is scary. And if they don't pay, if he leaves in 2019, Sens gotta tear it all down. They gotta go full rebuild. Hold up. We've got some news. Some news in the Wildcats. Jacob Stewart is on call-up for the Moncton Wildcats for the 2nd time this season. 16-year-old center is considered one of the top prospects in the Wildcats organization. And interesting. So Jacob Stewart got called up again. And he's being called up for this tiny road trip, 3-game road trip. So that's kind of interesting. Maybe they're just trying to shake up the offense a bit. Give it a little bit of momentum. Just change it up. So that's interesting. Jacob Stewart called up by the Wildcats for this upcoming road trip. So that's pretty cool. I mean, good for them to be doing that. And sorry, guys, that just happened now. So couldn't interrupt myself there. So back to the Senators. If they don't pay him his money, man, God, I don't know what they're going to do. I really don't. Next up, it is time for the GD Move of the Week.
It's the GD Move of the Week. Bum, bum, bum.
My GD Move of the Week this week goes to Matthew Tkachuk. Why does it go to Matthew Tkachuk? Well, if you watched the Leafs game last night, you know. Listen, man, I really like players that get under people's skin. I get it. I think it's a really underrated skill. It needs to be happening a lot more in the league, just because it works. It works so well. You know, just being that dick that no one wants to play against because he's just, oh God, I hate playing against that guy, you know? And some people have used it and turned it into skill. Like Marchand, for example. You know, he was a big reason, big guy that turned it around from being just a pest to being one of the best players in the league, really. And Matthew Tkachuk just really rubbed me the wrong way last night. Everything he did. And, you know, I think there's a few players like this still in the league. And I think it's kind of the new enforcer. You know, you had your regular enforcers that just straight up beat the hell out of people. That's not what, like, that's leaving the league. And I think these pests are now the contrary to that. These are the guys that are taking over that position. Just the guys that get in your face and they're mean and they have that extra hit. I used to think Leo Komarov was that, but Leo is not disrespectful, I don't believe. I don't believe that Leo is a disrespectful guy. I think he just, like, okay, the thing I've always loved about Leo is he'll hit you or he'll slash you and then he just will skate away, right? And that really gets guys angry. I mean, Marchand is a good example. Drew Doughty is probably the best example because he lost his mind on Komarov. But he'll hit you, and then you go, beep, 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 and he's already gone, you know? He's already skated away. He doesn't care what you have to say. And that's even more frustrating. Like, you remember when you were a kid and your mom is yelling at you and she's like, you didn't clean your room or whatever, and you're just like, you just sit there and you put on a face where you just don't care, and that made her even more angry? That's what Leo Komarov is to the NHL, where he will just make you so mad, and then you lose your mind on him and he just skates away. He doesn't care. And you're like you're just so frustrated because you want to get all these feelings out and all this anger out on him, and he's already gone. He doesn't care. Now, the contrast to that is a Brad Marchand or a Brendan Gallagher or a Matthew Tkachuk, a person that does not shut up on the ice and constantly chirps and constantly does all this stuff. Is there a better way, one way or the other? No, not really. But I prefer Komarov's just because I like Komarov more, and I think it's better because it gets you in less trouble. Just hitting a guy and skating away usually doesn't, like, you're not going to get in a fight usually, where if you chirp back and forth, something's probably going to happen. So I like Komarov's style better, but Tkachuk's and Marchand's and Gallagher's obviously work really well too. Kadri's good at it too, obviously. The difference is Kadri can score immensely, and I mean, obviously, so can Marchand and Gallagher too. I'm not dissing Gallagher. Even Tkachuk has got a decent amount of points, but I think Tkachuk takes it one step too far sometimes. Marchand was bad for it too. He's done some stupid things. But Tkachuk slashing Martin from the bench. Listen, man. Or sorry, spearing, not slashing. I get it. It was a love tap. It wasn't really anything. But if you are going to get someone in trouble for jumping off the bench at all when they're not supposed to, then how is a person allowed to spear from the bench? And he is getting a hearing. It was announced about 5 minutes before I started recording that he's having a hearing on it. And I think, listen, I'd be okay with the max fine. I think a 1-game suspension is probably fair, just because it's something you can't do. You know, I get it. It was gentle, but you still can't do it. You still can't do it. It's like stealing $2 from a cash register. It's $2. Yeah, it's still illegal. You still can't do it. You still should be punished for that. And that's the only thing I feel about that play. It was just unnecessary. And I've said for years, I'm a Leafs fan, so I hate Brendan Gallagher. I hate the guy because he's my enemy. If he was on my team, I'd love him. Same with Marchand. Probably same with Tkachuk. But it's just the fact that it's what they do. The only thing that bugs me is Gallagher stopped doing it, and now Tkachuk's doing it to make up for Gallagher not doing it, I guess. Gallagher used to just run goalies all the time. He had more, I believe the stat was he had more goalie interferences in one season than Ottawa did as a team, and Ottawa was second highest in goalie interference calls. Penalties. But so Gallagher had more than pretty much every team in the league. Not combined, but just every team in the league pretty much. And that drove me up a wall. I think that's disrespectful. I think it's dumb and it's not necessary. Luckily, I believed he has stopped. I haven't heard a lot about him doing it since. I don't watch a lot of Habs games, but I've heard he's kind of calmed down on it, so that's good. I still don't like the guy because Steve Dangle he's one of my heroes when it comes to broadcasting. I love his LFR series. I listen to his podcast all the time. His podcast is the reason why I'm doing this podcast. He used to talk about how some players have just the most, some guys just have a face you want to punch. And I think Brendan Gallagher for me is at the top of the list, where he's just got that, when he puts that smile on, I just want to knock him out. And is that probably a problem with me deep inside? Absolutely. I'm not going to argue with that. But I get that for other fans, Nazem Kadri is that punchable face where you just want to knock him out every time you see him on the screen. I get that. So that's my only thing, man. Every time Gallagher smiles, I just want to, he bugs me. And I don't know why. It's one of those things where I see him on the screen and I just get so angry, and then I have to realize this is a sport. It doesn't matter. It's hockey, Let it go. Why are you getting so angry at this dude that's probably a really nice guy? Probably a great guy. And my best example of that is PK Subban. I used to friggin' hate PK Subban, and it was because of his play on the ice. He's probably an amazing human being. He's clearly an amazing human being with what he did with the hospital in Montreal, and every interview he's had. I like PK now. And why is that? Because he's not on the Habs. It's really that simple. I got really off track here. The point is Matthew Tkachuk shouldn't have speared Martin from the bench, and that's why he gets the GD move of the week. Now let's just keep going with that conversation, though. The reason I hated PK was because he just chirped. He chirped all the time, and then he would never back it up. I don't like it when players talk, and then so the guy that they're chatting with drops the gloves, and they go, "Oh, I can't fight," all of a sudden. Don't chirp if you can't fight. I'm sorry. That's just my thing. And maybe it's because I love the fighting and stuff like that, but just, if you're gonna say, "Oh, I'll beat the hell out of you," then do it when you get the chance. It was bad for Subban. He would chirp. And I get it, okay? It's a good strategy. I know it gets other teams penalties and you are usually scot-free, but I just think it's so gutless. I don't know. That's my only thing. And I'm glad that Tkachuk got a few calls for him, man. Every team, a lot of teams have that pest. Ours is Nazem Kadri. Tkachuk, Gallagher, and Marchand are the big ones that come to mind. And Marchand's the new kid in town, and man, is he feisty. I would have loved to have him on my team, but he's not. So for now, I'll just hate him as a Leafs fan. Luckily, I don't think we have to play him again. So, all right. Let's just talk about the Leafs game in general. Freddie is a friggin' wall. so far in November. He's already been, I believe he was the goaltender of I think he was like second star of November in general, and he's still just continuing on from November. I saw that, I think in his last 11, he's like .945 save percentage. Last night, he's just absolutely dominant. It wasn't fair. And the Leafs just straight up didn't deserve to win at all, and they won in the shootout. By the way, my stance on shootout is it's terrible and stupid. The 3-on-3 overtime, like that game was kind of boring. I'm not gonna lie, it was boring because the Leafs did nothing. They did nothing all game. They played so well. Calgary, they played so well that they just blocked the Leafs in, and they couldn't get anything going. The Leafs, every time they get into the zone, got dumped out. Get into the zone, got dumped out. They couldn't do anything. And kudos to the Flames. I think they saw the last game, looked at the tape, and said, okay, let's change this. And it worked. To an extent, because Morgan Rielly had a friggin' snipe show, and they couldn't put it in past Freddie, and that's the only reason why they lost that game. And then the shootout, whatever, it doesn't matter. I think that the Flames should just be, honestly, if you're the Flames, just don't be angry. You ran into a hot goalie. He stopped a lot of shots that he probably shouldn't have stopped. So, if you're the Leafs, you didn't deserve that win, and you need to talk about it. You need to figure out what the hell went wrong there, because they didn't deserve that win, and they got it in the shootout. They got bloody lucky that they ended up with 2 points. Also, that 3-on-3 overtime was so friggin' exciting, and I love the 3-on-3 overtime. I love it so much. It's so exciting. Okay, on to can they do it? Can they do it? Maybe. My can they do it for this episode is Mitch Marner and William Nylander. Can they come back from these so-called slumps? Now, looking at both of their stats, Marner's slump is clearly in the goal column. He's got 2. He's got 14 assists for 16 points in 29 games. That's not the best for one of the guys that's supposed to be one of your best offensive players, but it's not terrible either. And the thing that people forget is they go, he's not scoring. It's like, yeah, he's not scoring now. There are 2 things are possible. Either it's a sophomore slump or it's a regular slump. If it's a regular slump, it'll soon be over and he'll come back to destroying worlds. If it's a sophomore slump, then next year it's probably going to be a lot better. But keep in mind, the Leafs aren't losing, guys. They aren't losing. So if Marner's not scoring, wait till he does start scoring, and the Leafs might be unstoppable. And it's not for lack of trying, man. This kid he's got so much passion. He tries so hard every single freaking night. And he's doing anything he can to get the puck in the net. So kudos to him. I think he's going to bounce back from this, no problem. Then we've got William Nylander, the other so-called slumper. He's got more points than Marner with 20 instead of 16 in 29 games, and he's only got 5 goals, and that's what people claim is his problem. He had 20 goals last year. I don't think he's on pace for that now. He might be, though. And Marner only had 19 last year, and he's at 2 this year. So here's my thing, is once again, it's a very similar thing where who cares that they're slumping right now, because they're going to get better, and when they do get better, the Leafs are going to be friggin' unstoppable. When you've got guys like Kadri and Marleau and JVR taking the reins in the goal scoring, then what's the problem? I think these guys need to get going, absolutely, but at the same time, it's not the biggest deal. When it comes to Nylander, just take him off the friggin' fourth line, please. Please get him out of there. Get him on a team. Get him on a line where he can create offense. And if you can, listen, I get it. You want him to score? Well, then give him somebody that he can work off of. He's used to Austin Matthews. His center now is Dominic Moore. I get it. You want to punish him. If that's what the plan is and you put him back. He did play a bit with Matthews last night. And even Marlowe, I think, for a bit. But, you take him off the fourth line, please. He deserves better. And if he's going to score goals, he needs better line mates to do that with. I get that he's slumping, but if you think that putting Nylander on Matthews' wing is going to make that line worse, I think you're crazy. So, yeah, I just think they got to do something about that. I think he's got to be taken off that line if they want to score goals. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. I guess can they do it? The answer is yes, they can do it. They're all gonna bounce back. It's gonna be fine. They're gonna be fine. The Leafs are gonna make the playoffs. Hopefully those players will be good enough by come playoff time that everything will work out. Hi, Ellie. That was my cat, Ellie. She wanted to say hi to the fans. You want to say hi to the fans? She doesn't want to say hi anymore. But the point is that Nylander, Marner will bounce back from this. Can they do it? Yes, they can. Bob the Builder style. So that's the end of this podcast. Follow me on Twitter at Nick, N-I-K, Ignatov, I-G-N-A-T-O-V. And yeah, I tweet during Leafs games sometimes and talk Wildcats every once in a while. So yeah, hopefully my next episode will be up on Saturday. So thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Iggy Podcast with Nick Ignatov. Make sure to follow him on Twitter for all the latest updates.